CIO News. I'm Khushbu Soni, your host for the broadcast and chief editor at CIO News. This is an exclusive interview series on the topic of zero trust security trend, an exclusive CIO and CISO interview series powered by Zscaler. This is a recorded session and will be available on our website, which is cionews.co.in, and our CIO News LinkedIn handle. It gives me an immense pleasure in introducing our first guest for today. He is Archit Rajesh, the Chief Information Security Officer and QA Head at Teamlease Services Limited. Archit has more than 10 years of experience in driving information security, quality, digital transformation initiatives for various organizations. Prior to Teamlease, Archit has been working for other brands like Jubilant Foodworks, Times Internet, NIIT, and many more. Archit, it's an absolute pleasure to have you today.
Thanks, Khushbu. The pleasure is all mine.
Great. Archit, I actually wanted to begin with, we've heard of Teamlease, but it will be great to hear it from you. So if you can give us a quick brief about Teamlease, that'd be great.
Sure, Khushbu. So to start with, Khushbu, Teamlease Services, as everybody is really aware of, is primarily a staffing solutions company, and we have been in this trade for over 2 decades now. And of course, while this has been a specialization area for us, of course, we realize that a lot of products that we have been creating in-house for our business enablement in order to support our core business, which is staffing. We realize that, yes, there is a huge potential, and we can also start selling these products as SaaS commodities. And that's the reason, there comes other things like payroll outsourcing, compliance outsourcing, and digital workforce solutions. So digital workforce solutions is a new stream of business which we have been doing since last few years. That means, of course, with formalization in employment, there comes things that how do you manage employees' attendance, their time, leave, their expense management. So DWS, the Digital Workforce Solutions, is actually an integrated and a comprehensive platform that really helps large organization formally manage all these kind of things. So of course, we have a well integrated end-to-end suite of technology offerings at Teamlease. And of course, staffing, as I say, is our core strength. So all in all, that's what Teamlease has been doing as a business.
Awesome. And, I understand with such huge workforce and, with the whole situation that we have been in, there's a lot of pressure on the IT and the security team. So I wanted to understand, to begin with, what's your typical day looks like as a CISO of, Teamlease?
Yes, of course. So I'll tell you, I think, if we see even from an industry perspective and a global perspective, the entire world is riding the digital transformation wave, right? So of course, whether it is Teamlease, it's our customers or any other organization, in the industry, everyone has their own digital transformation initiatives. And having said that, the pandemic has only accelerated this transformation, right? So people are now migrating to newer technologies, newer platforms. Of course, cloud is an obvious priority for everyone. With all of this, you see there are more users in the technology space, there is more data, and there are more applications, more devices. So with all of this, the risk actually only continues to grow. And if you really see, even in 2021, globally, the data that is being transacted, the data is being stored, is already more than 75 zettabytes. To put things into perspective, 1 zettabyte equals 1 trillion gigabytes. So you see, and the projection says that all of this is really going to go beyond 200 zettabytes by the year 2025. That's really, really huge. Now, with all of this, of course, all these organizations, be it Teamlease or anybody else, they're all part of this digital ecosystem. Now, as, like I said, complexity in the ecosystem is only growing because of all of this. There are daily new kind of threats emerging. Gone are those days where we could resort to conventional reactive methods. And that's the reason a typical day in my life actually goes in order to devise more proactive strategies, right? Because these days the threats are so advanced that if you resort to your conventional reactive methods, then most likely you will always be, getting busy in that, and sometimes you may even get compromised. That's the reason it's very important that you devise proactive methods and you intercept threats before they start building up an attack on you.
Right. Great. My follow-up question on that is, what are the security requirements as per you to keep in place before an organization decides to move to digital platforms like, or the conduct their business digitally? So what are the typical security measures that they should take? So if you can throw some lights on that.
So from a structured organization perspective, I mean, any matured organization, of course, they would be handling different categories of data, right? So the first and the foremost, the most important category of data actually would be their customer data. Of course, this customer data can be, something which they are accessing, something which they might be processing. So automatically for any service provider, it becomes foremost and the most important responsibility. How do they protect their customer data? So the first protection by default comes in for data. Now, in order to protect data, if you see in an ecosystem, there are different devices, there are different technology platforms, and of course, there are users. And now, if we really understand this fact, users are unfortunately the weakest link in an ecosystem, because you can put well-defined controls on data, on cloud, on your devices, on your applications. However, at any given point in time, there are going to be certain users who are going to be using this data. They're going to be processing this data. They're going to be using these platforms in order to do something with this data. So I think that's the reason for any structured and a matured organization, it is very important that first they do a risk modeling. The risk modeling means that first you identify what are the assets. Now, these can be hardware assets, software assets, data assets that they have with them. What kind of responsibilities do they have? Sometimes they are the data controller, sometimes they are only the data processor, but data controller is somebody else, maybe their customer, maybe their employees. So it's very important, first of all, they identify these things, then they identify threats, then they identify countermeasures. Of course, all these countermeasures are also going to be coming in with their own, native and inbound threats. So that's the reason I think it's very important that putting in all these things and plotting a risk model should be the first step, because once they are aware that, yes, these are the frontiers that pose a risk to my organization, then only they would be able to transition into the second step. That means that, yes, now how do I combat this risk? And how do I really minimize the overall residual risk in my organization?
Right. Got it. And so on that, my follow-up question is, what are the strategies, to be looked at while maintaining to maintain the compliance for any cloud environment? So now that we're seeing there's a lot of acceleration of moving to digital platforms, moving to cloud. So any thought process, and also would want to understand from your perspective at Teamlease, how are you currently doing it? How is your cloud environment looking like internally? Have you moved to cloud, and what are the security measures you are considering for that?
Yes, so I think a lot of questions bundled up into one. I'll just try and take them one by one so that I have a more comprehensive answer to that, right? So I think, yes, very rightly said that cloud is one of the most important components of digital transformation. Of course, when you talk about scale, you talk about large span of control, large span of applications, cloud is the obvious go-to choice. Now here, most leaders, what they do not realize is that cloud has to be exercised in a shared responsibility model. Most people think that, okay, we have deployed our application stack, all our data on cloud. Now it becomes the cloud provider's responsibility to secure all that. And now, of course, there are so many major players into the cloud space. The obvious bigger leaders are like AWS,
Right.
GCP, and Azure.
Right.
However, what leaders do not realize is that going to cloud is always going to happen in a shared responsibility model.
Right.
And I have been talking about this very frequently in my other interviews, in my other sessions as well, that shared responsibility is very important because it means that you are responsible for what is hosted in the cloud. However, the cloud service provider, of course, they also have certain responsibilities, but they are only responsible for the security of the cloud. So once you really understand this concept, then you understand that, yes, I will have to be managing my own cloud firewalls. I will have to be responsible for maintaining something like an AES 256 encryption for all data at rest, for all data in transit. I think once this shared responsibility model is well implemented in place, automatically people understand what kind of controls they need to put into the cloud. From a Teamlease perspective also, I would say that, yes, I think a couple of years back, we moved our major application stack on cloud. And we have always been aware of the fact that, yes, this is how we are going to be moving forward with initiatives to implement the shared responsibility model. Of course, we ensure that all our data is AES 256 encrypted, regardless of the fact whether it is on cloud or it is not on cloud. Now, of course, it's up to us that all these applications, when they run in cloud, how do we really manage the permissioning, the identity management on all these things? So I think all these things cumulatively would certainly ensure how do you keep your cloud secure. One of the newer things that now people are implementing is a CASB, that's Cloud Access Security Broker. So this is something, see, because what happens is that it's not just that the organizations will be having their own clouds. Today, everyone wants to build an integrated and a comprehensive ecosystem. And that is only going to happen with many product integrations, many partnerships with other providers. And everybody will have their own clouds. And ultimately, you will knowingly or unknowingly land up in a situation of a multi-cloud. And governing a multi-cloud environment is a big challenge in itself. And that's the reason something like a CASB will not only provide security, but it will also provide leaders with a much more better governance.
Right. Awesome. So great. And would love to know your thoughts around the zero trust strategies and what are the zero trust strategies to be incorporated for a secure network and application access? If you can throw some light on that.
Sure. So I think zero trust, of course, zero trust in itself is a big evolution. This is not going to happen in one day. If today I decide that, okay, I want to implement zero trust platform and let's make it as a project of maybe a quarter or 2 quarters, it's definitely not going to happen. Today, if I decide I need to achieve zero trust, then of course there are several enablers that I first need to put in place. Once those things get into place, then there are going to be more complex controls which are going to get built up on top of that. And gradually, day by day, we are going to move towards a zero trust environment. I think there is a well-defined approach that how we can go about in implementing a zero trust environment. I think the first point is data, actually. How do you manage your information protection, your encryption? That becomes the first stage. After you are done with these things, then the next thing comes is your applications and your platforms. How do you manage federation, authentication, identity management, of course, auditing, the audit trails? All these things would become components of the application, the platforms layer. Then the third thing comes in as your hosts and devices, actually, right? I'm talking about all the servers, all the endpoints, all these things. We are talking about platform operating systems, vulnerability management, anti-malwares, EDRs, all these kind of things would be going in the section for hosts and devices. After you are done with data, applications, and hosts and devices, then the fourth thing comes in as your network, your NAC, your TLS, your internal NGFW, your internal policies, all these kind of things. How are you maintaining your firewalls? All these kind of things are going to be working at a network layer. After network, obviously, here comes in things like firewall, which are, I think I would use a more broader term after network. Let's call it perimeter. I think perimeter is going to be the next thing after network. And after you have all these things in place, then I think the last but not the least things would come in as your physical controls and your policies, procedures, and awareness. I think if we really pull out all these things in a well-structured manner, in a stage-wise manner, I'm pretty sure that any structured organization can really successfully move to a fairly matured level of zero trust platform.
Right. Got it. Awesome. My next question is around, Archit, if you can help us understand with Teamlease, what is the future of security that you are looking at as a way forward? How are you kind of prioritizing the security measures, and with the current situation, how are you currently handling that?
Yes, of course. So like I said that, cybersecurity in itself is a science, and it is always going to be evolving each day,
Right.
each moment. Each day we are experiencing the onset of newer technologies, and this new technology, whichever comes in, is always going to be democratic in nature. That means we cannot really control that only the white hats and the genuine people are going to have access to it. Of course, malicious people and black hats are also going to have access to newer technologies. And that's the reason, if you see threats and the techniques through which these threats really penetrate our devices, our data, and our network are only getting modern and modern with each passing day. So that's the reason in the beginning also I said that, the biggest priority for us is that how we can proactively detect threats. So I think that is one area that I would like to certainly talk about. AI ML is something that has been very frequently talked about. It is getting increasingly popular in the cybersecurity space, that everybody is leveraging AI and ML in things like automation, productivity. But are there venues, are there advantages where we can use these things in cybersecurity also? I think yes. The concept of IOA and IOC, that means indicators of attack and indicators of compromise. This is one area where I think AI and ML can really bring in a lot of advantage. If you see conventional signature-based antiviruses, how do they really detect threats? Technically, they do not even detect threats. They actually detect attacks. So once an attack has happened, of course, they map this attack with their signature database, which can really be exhaustive in nature. However, they are only going to raise an alarm once an attack has happened, and then they are going to try to stop it. However, if you think about something which is going to be more proactive in nature, it is, I think I just missaid it. It's going to be indicators of compromise. That means a compromise has already happened, and then only they are going to raise an alarm. However, from a proactive perspective, how about if we can actually intercept something like an attack? That yes, I see this is something which may not be an active threat right now, but however, it can definitely unfold to wreak disaster. Now, this is the concept of IOA, which is indicator of attack. So I think, yes, these days we have modern EDR solutions which are utilizing AI and ML. And they are continuously monitoring the behavior of all our activities on the network, on servers, on devices. And using these behavioral algorithms, they are able to identify that what could possibly be a threat. And that's the reason it is all about intercepting attacks rather than compromises. So if you see, yes, at Teamlease, we have comprehensive EDR solutions that really proactively find out and proactively identifies that these are those potential threats that we can investigate and we can actually eliminate that. Now, moving on further from here, the concept of threat hunting, which is again getting increasingly very popular, that rather than threats hunting us and then we reacting to that? How about if we move out like a hunter and we actually investigate different things? So I think in one of my other presentations also, what I did was I wanted to draw a visual comparison and make it at the same time very easy to understand also for people that what exactly is the difference between a conventional antivirus and a new age EDR. So I said that you can always imagine a conventional antivirus is more like a security guard. It will always intercept basic threats. It will raise alarms wherever you will see the breaches happening. However, if you see an EDR, a new age EDR can actually be something like an NSG commando or a SWAT commando, where they would be proactively raiding all these threats and neutralizing them.
Right. Awesome. Great insights, Archit. I think one last question with the time that we left with. So, any best practices or certain do's and don'ts that you would want to share with our viewers through this platform? That'll be great.
Sure. So, of course, like I already said, the cybersecurity is a big science in itself. And the do's and don'ts, I think if I start talking about an exhaustive list, maybe the day would not be even sufficient. But I think my only request to all the viewers and all the leaders out there who are listening to this is that I think first of all, it is very important that you understand all the threat vectors. Half of the time we are actually getting compromised is just that because we did not evaluate our threat vectors. We are not really aware what kind of threats exist outside. And at the same time, we are not aware what kind of threats can really sabotage our business, our data. So first and foremost, the very important thing is that please spend time in understanding your threat vectors. And like I said, develop a threat model. And I'm very sure that if you develop a threat model, then automatically you will be well equipped to go on to next steps, that what are those things that I need to choose. From a not do perspective, I think is these days, of course, you see there are several products. There are many products which are getting developed, whether it is AI, ML, automation, productivity, communication, and these new products are only going to surge into the market as you see more technologies boom in, more entrepreneurs come in. My only thing is that it's always good to evaluate these partners first. Of course, things can be very well innovative. Things can be really, really very fancy. And yes, please don't get me wrong, they can really bring in a huge value. However, you always have to really put security at the forefront, and you always have to evaluate all these products that you are going to bring into your own ecosystem, because ultimately whatever risk that is up to them, once they get part of your system, then of course this risk is only going to add up to the cumulative risk that you are going to have for your organization. I think that's one thing, is that please do not just go out with any partner. First, I would say always complete your due diligence.
Absolutely. Great. Awesome. So wonderful insights. I'm sure that are good key takeaways for the viewers. So thank you so much for joining us on the CIO News platform and sharing this valuable insights with us. Thank you, Archit. It's a pleasure to host you.
Thanks, Khushbu. It was indeed a great discussion.